My name is Lena Morales, and 3 days after we buried our mother, my sister stood in the kitchen of Mom's house and told me she'd taken everything. The bank accounts, the investment portfolio, the house, all of it. She smiled when she said it, that familiar confident smile that had always gotten her what she wanted. Mom left everything to me, Vanessa said, leaning against the counter like she owned it, which, apparently, she did. She wanted it this way. She told me herself, multiple times. You were never really family the way I was, Lena. You know that. I stood there holding a box of Mom's photo albums, feeling like I'd been slapped. Not because of the money, though $230,000 wasn't nothing, but because of what it implied. That 7 years of caring for Mom meant nothing. That being there through every doctor's appointment, every frightening night, every small moment of decline had been worthless. That doesn't sound like Mom, I said quietly. Vanessa shrugged. It's already done. The lawyers handled everything. You can check if you want, but it won't change anything. She walked out, leaving me standing there. What she didn't know was that Mom had mentioned something to me 2 months before she died. Something about making sure I read everything carefully. Every single page. Growing up, Vanessa and I were night and day. She was 3 years older, beautiful in that effortless way that made people gravitate toward her. Confident, charming, the kind of person who walked into rooms and immediately became the center of attention. Mom had always adored that about her. I was quieter, thoughtful, the responsible one who got good grades, helped with household tasks, and never caused problems. I didn't mind being in Vanessa's shadow. It felt natural, like that was just how families worked. She was the star. I was the support system. When we were younger, Mom would praise Vanessa's accomplishments loudly, her cheerleading trophies, her popularity, her ability to make friends easily. My achievements got acknowledged with quiet nods. That's nice, honey. Nothing more. I told myself it didn't matter. That different children needed different things. That Vanessa required more attention, and I was fine without it. I convinced myself I preferred being overlooked because it meant less pressure, more freedom. But somewhere deep down, I wondered if Mom just loved her more. If being the loud, demanding daughter was more valuable than being the quiet, dependable one. If visibility mattered more than reliability. Looking back now, I see how that dynamic shaped everything that came later. When Mom got diagnosed with early-onset dementia at 62, I was the one who moved back home. Vanessa lived 2 hours away in the city, working in real estate, building what she called her empire. She had a busy life, she explained. Important clients. A career that demanded her attention. I rearranged my entire existence. Quit my job as a medical transcriptionist to work freelance from home. Moved into Mom's spare bedroom. Learned about medications, doctor's appointments, memory care strategies, and how to handle the moments when Mom forgot who I was. The early stages were hardest emotionally. Mom would have moments of clarity where she'd realize what was happening to her. She'd cry. I'd hold her hand and tell her it would be okay, even though we both knew it wouldn't be. I handled her bills, managed her medications, took her to neurologist appointments every 3 months, cooked meals she could actually remember eating, labeled everything in the house so she wouldn't get confused, set up routines that gave her days structure and safety. At night, when she'd wander or get frightened, I was there. Every time. For 7 years, I was there. Not because anyone asked me to. Not because I expected anything in return. But because she was my mother and she needed someone. And I was the someone who stayed. Vanessa visited approximately once every 6 weeks. She'd arrive with expensive gifts, fancy chocolates Mom couldn't eat because of dietary restrictions, luxurious scarves Mom would forget about immediately, flowers that I'd end up caring for because Mom didn't remember they existed. Her visits followed a pattern. She'd sweep in looking glamorous, hug Mom enthusiastically, and spend 2 or 3 hours having surface-level conversations while I handled the actual care work in the background. She'd take photos together, smiling broadly, and post them on social media with captions about cherishing family time. "You're such a saint for doing this," she'd tell me, but her tone suggested she thought I had nothing better to do. As if caring for Mom was my natural role rather than a choice I'd made while she'd chosen differently. During her visits, Vanessa would ask questions about Mom's finances. Casual questions that seemed innocent. Has Mom been managing her accounts okay? Does she need help with bills? What about her investments? I'd answer honestly, I was handling everything, keeping detailed records, ensuring bills got paid and accounts stayed organized. She'd nod approvingly, as if my competence in managing Mom's affairs was exactly what she'd expected from her responsible little sister. She never offered to help, never suggested sharing the workload, just collected information and left, returning to her busy, important life. And Mom would smile at her photos for days, forgetting that I'd been the one actually there. 5. About a year before Mom died, she mentioned paperwork. We were sitting in her bedroom, sunlight coming through the window, and she suddenly looked at me with unusual clarity. "Lena, I need to make sure something is handled properly," she said. "The will, the documents. I want to be sure you understand everything." "We don't need to talk about that now," I said gently, uncomfortable with the topic. "Yes, we do. There are things I've set up. You need to read everything carefully when the time comes. Every page. Promise me you'll read every page." "I promise, Mom." She squeezed my hand. "Not just what people tell you is there. Everything. Some things need to stay quiet until the right moment." I didn't fully understand what she meant. The dementia made her cryptic sometimes, urgent about details that seemed random. But I promised anyway, because it seemed important to her. Later that week, Vanessa visited. Mom mentioned the will conversation to her. Vanessa immediately changed the subject, talking about a property she just sold and a vacation she was planning. The paperwork topic got buried under her stories, dismissed as unimportant or maybe uncomfortable. I remembered Mom's face when Vanessa deflected. Something sad, something resigned. But the moment passed, and I told myself I'd imagined it. Mom passed away on a Tuesday morning in October. Peacefully, in her sleep, which was the best outcome we could have hoped for given the progression of her condition. I was the one who found her. I was the one who called the ambulance. I was the one who made the funeral arrangements. Vanessa arrived that afternoon, crying dramatically, talking about how much she cherished Mom and how devastating this loss was. At the funeral 3 days later, she delivered a moving eulogy about their special bond, their shared memories, how Mom had been her best friend. People who didn't know our actual history probably believed her. She was compelling, emotional, convincing. I sat in the front row listening to her describe a relationship that existed primarily in photos and occasional visits, while 7 years of daily caregiving went unmentioned. After the funeral, people came to Mom's house. Vanessa held court in the living room, accepting condolences and sharing stories. I was in the kitchen, managing food and drinks, playing my familiar background role. That evening, after everyone left, Vanessa started going through Mom's papers. Not asking, not suggesting we do it together. Just taking control, sorting through documents in Mom's office like it was her right. "I'll handle the estate stuff," she announced. "I'm better with legal things. You focus on packing up her personal items." I was too exhausted and grief-stricken to argue. The declaration came 3 days later. We were meeting with Mom's lawyer, Howard Carpenter, a gentleman in his 60s who'd handled Mom's legal affairs for 20 years. The office smelled like old books and furniture polish. Howard pulled out Mom's will. Standard format, legal language. He began reading. The house would go to Vanessa. The investment accounts would go to Vanessa. The savings would go to Vanessa. Some personal items would be distributed at Vanessa's discretion. I sat there feeling them. Not angry, not yet. Just confused and hurt. 7 years. Every day. Every night. Every moment of fear and exhaustion and sacrifice. And apparently it had meant nothing. Mom wanted me to have everything, Vanessa said after Howard finished reading. Her voice carried this tone of inevitability, like we'd all known this was coming. She told me years ago. She knew I'd handle it responsibly, manage it properly, continue her legacy. She looked at me with something that might have been pity. "You were never really family the way I was, Lena. Not in the way that matters for these things. You understand, right? Mom and I had a special connection. That's just how it was." The words landed like physical blows. 7 years of caregiving reduced to nothing. Dismissed. Erased. As if love was measured in DNA and charisma rather than presence and sacrifice. I looked at Howard. His expression was carefully neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Something uncomfortable. something that looked like he wanted to say more but couldn't. Over the next week, Vanessa moved quickly. She transferred Mom's savings, $230,000 that Mom had carefully accumulated over decades of teaching elementary school. The investment portfolio worth another $180,000. She listed the house for sale without consulting me, even though I was still living there. "You'll need to be out by the end of the month," she told me casually. "The realtor says staging works better without personal items around." You understand, I found myself packing up 7 years of my life, 7 years of caring for Mom, into boxes. Photos I'd framed, routines I'd established, the bedroom I'd slept in while listening for Mom's nighttime wandering. All of it reduced to cardboard boxes and garbage bags. Vanessa came by occasionally to supervise. Really, she was shopping Mom's furniture, deciding what was valuable enough to sell separately and what would stay for staging. She treated Mom's possessions like merchandise, evaluating them with cold efficiency. "I'm keeping the good jewelry, obviously," she said, sorting through Mom's small collection. "And the china, that's worth something. You can have the photo albums if you want. They're not really worth anything. Not worth anything." Like Mom's memories had a price tag, and only valuable items mattered. Like 7 years of photos I'd taken, moments I'd documented. Memories I'd preserved were worthless because they couldn't be sold. "Already handled," Vanessa kept saying whenever I asked about details. "The lawyers took care of it. Nothing you need to worry about." I didn't fight back immediately. People assumed I would. Friends asked why I wasn't contesting the will, hiring my own lawyer, demanding my fair share. But I couldn't. Not yet. Partly it was grief. Mom had died. That loss overwhelmed everything else. Fighting about money felt mercenary when I was still processing that she was gone. That the person I'd cared for 7 years, the person whose hand I'd held through frightening nights, no longer existed. Partly it was shock. I genuinely hadn't expected this. I'd never cared for Mom because I wanted inheritance. I'd done it because she was my mother and she needed me. But I'd assumed there would be acknowledgement, recognition, some indication that my presence had mattered. But mostly, it was years of conditioning. I was the quiet daughter, the one who didn't make waves, the one who accepted her role without complaint. Vanessa took up space, and I made room for her. That was our dynamic. Changing it felt impossible, like trying to rewrite gravity. So I packed. I looked for apartments. I updated my resume. I prepared to move on with my life, accepting that this was just how things were. That some people got everything, and others got photo albums. Except something kept nagging at me. Something Mom had said, about reading everything carefully. Every single page. As I sorted through Mom's personal papers, the items Vanessa considered worthless, I started noticing things. Small details that didn't quite fit the narrative Vanessa had constructed. Mom had been meticulous about record-keeping. Years of teaching had made her organized, systematic. Her filing system was color-coded and labeled. Bills in one folder, medical records in another, personal correspondence in a third. Even as the dementia progressed, she'd maintained these habits through sheer muscle memory. I found notebooks where she tracked household expenses. Her handwriting deteriorated over the years as her condition worsened, but the entries were consistent. Grocery receipts, utility bills, medical copays, and next to many entries, a small notation, Lena paid. Hundreds of entries over 7 years. Thousands of dollars I'd spent on Mom's care, documented in her careful handwriting. Not because she'd asked me to track it, just because recording things was what she did. I found birthday cards she'd saved. Every year, I'd given her simple cards with handwritten notes. Vanessa sent expensive cards with generic printed messages and her signature. Mom had kept all of mine in a special box, tied with ribbon. Vanessa's were mixed in with general correspondence. Small things, maybe meaningless, but they painted a picture different from the one Vanessa described. They suggested Mom had noticed who was actually present, who was actually there. 2 weeks after the funeral, I was going through the box of documents Howard had given me, copies of paperwork for my records. Standard estate administration stuff that I'd barely glanced at while grieving and packing. I started actually reading carefully, the way Mom had asked me to. Bank statements, property deeds, insurance policies, the will itself, which I'd only heard read aloud in Howard's office. The will was 7 pages long. professional legal formatting, Mom's signature on the final page, witnessed and notarized. I read through provisions about the house, the accounts, the personal property, everything Vanessa had claimed. Then I got to the final page, page 7, where Mom's signature appeared, and I noticed something. Below her signature was another paragraph. Small font, legal language that continued on to what looked like it should be page 8. Except there was no page 8 in my packet. The document ended at page 7 mid-paragraph, as if something had been removed or never copied. The sentence literally stopped halfway through. Furthermore, the provisions outlined above shall be subject to the conditions specified in the attached addendum which, and then nothing, no continuation, no attached addendum, just an incomplete sentence hanging in space like a question mark. I went through the packet 3 times. No missing pages, no additional documents, just that incomplete sentence pointing to something that should exist but didn't. I called Howard's office the next morning. His secretary scheduled me for an appointment 3 days out, the soonest he could see me. I spent those 3 days alternating between convincing myself I was imagining things and feeling increasingly certain that something had been missed. When I finally sat across from Howard in his office, I showed him the incomplete sentence. He adjusted his glasses and read it carefully. His expression shifted. Concern. Then something that looked like realization. "I need to pull the original file," he said quietly. "Can you wait here?" He left for 10 minutes. When he returned, he was carrying a thicker folder than before. He sat down, arranged papers carefully, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Ms. Morales, I need to ask you a direct question. Did your sister give you a complete copy of your mother's will?" "She didn't give me any copy." "You did at the reading." "No, I gave you both copies that day. Standard procedure, each beneficiary receives a complete set of documents." "Did you receive all 8 pages?" "My copy only has 7 pages. Howard's jaw tightened. "Your mother's will is 8 pages long, with a handwritten addendum that constitutes page 8. That addendum contains critical provisions that significantly alter the distribution I read from the main document. Without page 8, the will appears to leave everything to Vanessa. With page 8, the situation is very different." My heart started pounding. "What does page 8 say?" "I think we need to schedule a proper reading, with both you and your sister present, and perhaps with witnesses." The final page, the real final page, was handwritten, not typed like the rest of the will. Mom's handwriting, shakier than it had been in earlier years but still clearly hers. Dated 8 months before she died, signed and witnessed by 2 nurses from her medical practice. The addendum began with a paragraph explaining that Mom was adding these provisions while she still had mental clarity. Her neurologist had certified her competent to make legal decisions at the time of writing. She wanted to ensure her true wishes were documented clearly. Then came the actual provisions, and I understood immediately why Vanessa had removed this page. Mom wrote that she was leaving the house and primary assets to Vanessa in the main will because she knew Vanessa expected it and would contest anything else. But those provisions were conditional, temporary, subject to a 6-month verification period. During those 6 months, if Vanessa demonstrated the caregiving, responsibility, and family commitment she'd always claimed to have, the inheritance would remain as written. But if her behavior showed she'd only valued Mom's assets rather than Mom herself, the provisions would reverse. The addendum specified criteria: evidence of Vanessa's actual involvement in Mom's care, documentation of her presence, proof that her relationship with Mom was real rather than performative, and it appointed me as executor of the verification process, with authority to present evidence to Howard, who would make final determinations based on Mom's clear standards. Mom had built a test, one Vanessa didn't know she was taking. She knew Vanessa loved the idea of family more than actual family, loved appearance more than presence, loved what Mom represented: stability, eventual inheritance, photo opportunities, without loving the day-to-day reality of who Mom was. She knew I'd stayed not because I expected anything, but because staying was what love looked like when someone needed you. That 7 years of caregiving wasn't strategy. It was just love, expressed through presence. But Mom also understood that challenging Vanessa directly would lead to legal battles, family destruction, and years of conflict. Vanessa would fight anything that didn't give her everything, would claim Mom wasn't competent, would hire lawyers and drag the process through courts. So Mom built something smarter. She gave Vanessa what she expected in the public document. Then she created a private mechanism to reveal truth through behavior rather than argument. The 6-month period would demonstrate whether Vanessa's claims about cherishing Mom, valuing family, and honoring legacy were real. Whether she'd continue being family after Mom was gone, or whether her interest had always been financial. Mom wrote, "I pray Vanessa proves me wrong. But if I'm right, Lena deserves protection. This is my way of protecting the daughter who protected me." The clause Vanessa had ignored, or deliberately hidden, contained specific conditions. During the 6-month verification period, several things would determine whether the inheritance provisions remained as written or reversed. First, evidence of Vanessa's actual involvement in Mom's care prior to death. Documentation would be reviewed. Visitor logs from when Mom was in care facilities, records of who attended medical appointments, financial records showing who paid for what, the truth about presence versus absence. Second, Vanessa's behavior after Mom's death, how she handled estate administration, whether she consulted with me or excluded me, how she treated Mom's memory, possessions, and the person who'd actually cared for her, whether greed or grief guided her actions. Third, any evidence that Vanessa had manipulated the estate process, hidden documents, misrepresented Mom's wishes, acted in bad faith, any indication that she'd valued money over family. The addendum specified that Howard would review evidence I provided. He'd interview relevant parties. He'd examine the full picture of both daughters' relationships with Mom. Then he'd make a determination based on Mom's clearly stated standards. If Vanessa failed the verification, the provisions reversed. The house would go to me. The savings would go to me. The investments would be split equally, with a larger portion to me to compensate for years of unpaid caregiving. Vanessa would receive a small token amount, acknowledgement that she was family, but not the primary heir. The money wouldn't disappear immediately, but it would become reversible, subject to legal action Mom had authorized in advance. The shift happened immediately once Howard explained the addendum. Assets Vanessa had already transferred could be frozen pending review. The house sale could be halted. Accounts could be examined. Everything could be challenged based on provisions Mom had legally established. "The verification period is 6 months from your mother's death," Howard said. "We're at week 3. The clock is still running. But given what I've observed of Vanessa's behavior, specifically her apparent removal of page 8 from your document packet, I have grounds to initiate the review process immediately." He looked at me seriously. "Do you have documentation of your role in your mother's care? The addendum specifies that you can present evidence for consideration." Did I have documentation? 7 years of medical appointment calendars, with my handwriting. Bills I'd paid with receipts. Photos showing daily presence, not just staged visits. Text messages with doctors, pharmacies, medical supply companies. Bank records showing my financial contributions. Journals I'd kept to track Mom's symptoms and medication responses. "I have everything," I said quietly. "And Vanessa's removal of the final page from your document packet, that's evidence of bad faith estate administration. Your mother's addendum specifically addresses situations where a beneficiary attempts to manipulate the process." My hands were shaking, not from anger, from relief, from validation, from the realization that Mom had seen everything, had understood, had protected me even after she was gone. The call went to Vanessa's phone 3 days later. Howard contacted her professionally, requesting her presence for a complete estate review. Standard procedure, he explained, when complex wills require verification of provisions. She sounded irritated but unconcerned. "I already received my inheritance. Everything's been handled. What's there to review? Your mother's will contain provisions that require administrative review before final distributions are confirmed. I need both beneficiaries present to review the complete document." "I don't understand. We already did the reading. Everything was clear." "Ms. Morales, did you provide your sister with a complete copy of the will? Specifically, did you give her all 8 pages?" Silence. Long silence. When Vanessa spoke again, her tone had changed completely. 8 pages? The will was 7 pages. The executed will is 8 pages, with a handwritten addendum on the final page. That addendum contains provisions that significantly impact estate distribution. I need to know if you removed that page from your sister's document packet. I don't remember. Everything was so chaotic. Maybe I accidentally. Accidentally removing a page that reverses your inheritance isn't something that happens by chance, Ms. Morales. We need to meet. Tomorrow, if possible. Both of you. After he hung up, I imagine Vanessa sat there realizing something was wrong. That her perfect acquisition was developing cracks. That somehow, impossibly, I had leverage she didn't know existed. Vanessa called me 20 minutes after Howard's call. Her voice was different. Higher. Stressed. The confidence that had defined her suddenly absent. Lena, what's going on? Why is the lawyer calling about additional provisions? You said you didn't care about the inheritance. You said you understood Mom's wishes. I never said that. You said that. I just listened. This is ridiculous. Mom left everything to me. It's done. You can't challenge it now, just because you're having regrets. I'm not challenging anything. I'm simply participating in the estate administration process that Mom established. Reading all 8 pages, like she asked me to. 8 pages? There were only 7, she caught herself, realizing she'd just admitted knowing there was a missing page. You removed it, I said quietly, not accusing, just stating fact. I didn't. It was an accident. There was so much paperwork. You removed the page that explained Mom's actual wishes. The page that protected me. The page that created conditions for your inheritance. Lena, listen. We can work this out. Maybe we split things differently. Maybe I was hasty about the house. We can negotiate. This isn't about negotiation. It's about truth. About what Mom actually wanted. About 7 years of caregiving versus 7 years of occasional visits. About who was really family. Don't do this. Please. I'm your sister. Then you should have acted like it. I hung up. The reading happened in Howard's conference room. Me, Vanessa, Howard, and 2 witnesses, associates from his firm who would document everything. The atmosphere was tense. Formal. Nothing like the first reading 3 weeks ago. Vanessa sat across from me, looking diminished. No expensive outfit today. No confident posture. Just someone who'd realized her certainty was built on incomplete information. Howard began formally. We're here to conduct a complete reading of Eleanor Morales' will, including all provisions and amendments. This reading is being documented and witnessed to ensure proper estate administration. He read from the beginning. The 7 pages Vanessa had claimed were complete. The house, the accounts, the investments, all designated to Vanessa in the main document. She sat up straighter, perhaps hoping that was all there was, that the 8th page was somehow irrelevant. Then Howard turned the page. We now proceed to the handwritten addendum, page 8, dated February 14th, signed and witnessed in the presence of 2 certified medical professionals, while Mrs. Morales was certified mentally competent by her attending urologist. He began reading Mom's words, her explanation of creating conditional provisions, her description of watching both daughters, her careful construction of a verification process. The room was absolutely silent except for Howard's voice reading Mom's truth. Realization settled over Vanessa's face as Howard read. Shock, then comprehension, then something that looked like devastation. She understood what Mom had done. Built an inheritance that required proof of character. Created conditions that revealed truth through behavior. The verification period examines 3 areas, Howard continued, reading Mom's words. First, documented evidence of actual caregiving prior to my death. Second, behavior during estate administration after my death. Third, any evidence of manipulation or bad faith in handling estate provisions. He set down the document, looked at both of us. I've now reviewed evidence in all 3 areas. Lena has provided comprehensive documentation of her role in your mother's care. 7 years of medical records, financial contributions, daily presence. In contrast, Vanessa's involvement was limited to occasional visits, averaging once every 6 weeks. Vanessa started to speak. Howard held up his hand. Regarding behavior during estate administration, evidence shows that Vanessa excluded Lena from decision-making, demanded she vacate the family home within weeks of the funeral, and distributed assets without consultation. This demonstrates priority of financial gain over family consideration. He looked at Vanessa directly. Most significantly, evidence suggests you deliberately removed page 8 from Lena's document packet, denying her access to provisions your mother specifically intended her to have. This constitutes bad faith estate administration and grounds for immediate reversal under the addendum's terms. Vanessa's face had gone pale. I didn't mean it was a mistake. The page didn't accidentally remove itself, Ms. Morales. You excluded it deliberately because you understood it threatened your total inheritance. The consequences unfolded methodically. Howard explained each provision's reversal in careful legal language. The house, which Vanessa had listed for sale, would transfer to me. The sale would be canceled immediately. She'd need to return any deposit she'd received. The savings account she transferred would be frozen and then redistributed. She'd keep $30,000, acknowledgement that she was family, but not the primary heir Mom had chosen through her verification conditions. The investment portfolio would be split, with 60% to me and 40% to Vanessa. The larger portion reflected both Mom's wishes and compensation for 7 years of unpaid caregiving. Personal property she'd already taken, jewelry, furniture, items of value would need to be returned. An inventory would be conducted to ensure compliance. This isn't optional, Howard said quietly. Your mother established these provisions legally while mentally competent. Her addendum is valid. Its conditions have been met. The reversal is automatic and enforceable. Vanessa tried one last time. You don't understand. Mom and I had a special relationship. I have documentation of your relationship, Howard interrupted. Visitor logs from when your mother was in care facilities show Lena presents 6 days per week on average. You visited an average of 1.3 times per month. That's not special. That's sporadic. I had work obligations. Lena had work obligations too. She restructured her life to be present. You chose not to. Your mother noticed the difference. That's why she wrote this addendum. Vanessa looked at me with something desperate. Lena, please. You don't want to do this. Family doesn't destroy family over money. You already did that, I said softly. When you took everything and told me I was never really family. When you erased 7 years of caregiving. When you removed the page that showed Mom's truth. You destroyed family. I'm just reading what she wrote. What I gained wasn't primarily money, though the financial security mattered. After 7 years of freelance work and caregiving, I needed stability. The house meant I wouldn't have to start over completely. The savings meant I could breathe without panic. But mostly, I gained validation. Proof that Mom had seen everything. That 7 years of presence, of small moments, of daily care had mattered to her. That she'd noticed who was actually there and who just visited for appearances. I gained closure knowing that Mom's silence about favoritism hadn't been agreement with Vanessa's narrative. It had been strategy, waiting for death to reveal truth, because challenging Vanessa while alive would have destroyed family completely. I gained peace understanding that Mom had trusted me enough to build this verification process. That she'd known I'd document, preserve, and prove truth not through argument but through evidence. That quiet competence was what she'd valued all along. The house felt different now. Not like Mom's house where I'd been living temporarily. Like my house. My home. A place I'd earned not through blood relation, but through 7 years of choosing presence when presence was hard. I walked through rooms where I'd cared for Mom, and instead of grief, I felt something else. Gratitude. Connection. Love that survived death through careful legal planning, and a mother's final protection of the daughter who'd protected her. Vanessa made one final attempt 3 weeks after the reading. She came to the house, my house now, and asked if we could talk. I let her in, offered coffee, waited. You're destroying our family, she said. Fighting over money like this. Mom would be devastated. Mom wrote the addendum. She created the verification process. I'm just honoring what she wanted. You're taking advantage of a legal technicality to steal my inheritance. Your inheritance was conditional. You failed the conditions. That's not a technicality. That's consequences. I love Mom. I did everything I could. You visited once every 6 weeks. I was here every day for 7 years. Those aren't the same thing. Vanessa's voice rose. I had a career, responsibilities, I couldn't just drop everything. I dropped everything. Because that's what love looks like when someone needs you. You chose your career. That's fine. But you don't get to claim caregiving credit when you chose absence. This is betrayal. Turning mom's death into some kind of competition. You turned it into competition when you took everything and told me I was never really family. When you removed page 8 from my documents. When you tried to erase my 7 years of presence. I'm just reading what Mom wrote. She stared at me with something like hatred. I'll never forgive you for this. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I said quietly. I asked that you read all 8 pages. People ask me sometimes what inheritance really means. They assume it's about money, assets, material distribution. But sitting in Mom's house, my house, surrounded by 7 years of memories, I understand it's more complicated than that. Inheritance is love expressed through preparation. Mom knew she was dying, knew her mind was failing, knew she needed to protect the daughter who'd protected her. The addendum wasn't about money. It was about ensuring truth survived when she couldn't speak it anymore. Inheritance is about acknowledging invisible work. 7 years of caregiving left no dramatic evidence. No awards. No public recognition. Just daily presence. Small moments. Quiet sacrifice. Mom's addendum said that mattered. That being there when cameras weren't rolling counted more than staged visits and social media posts. Inheritance is about teaching lessons that outlive you. Mom taught Vanessa that appearances without substance eventually fail. That charm without character doesn't create real relationships. That taking credit for other people's work leaves you with nothing when truth emerges. And Mom taught me that quiet competence isn't weakness. That documentation defeats deception. That patience and presence matter more than performance. That love expressed through daily choice is stronger than love expressed through occasional gesture. The money helped. Security mattered. But the real inheritance was validation. Proof that Mom had seen everything. That being the daughter who stayed meant something. That sometimes the quiet ones inherit the earth, not because they demand it, but because they earned it. Vanessa thought being loud made her the heir. Being visible. Being the one who demanded attention and received it. Being the daughter Mom praised publicly and showcased proudly. She assumed that performance equaled priority. She forgot that Mom was a teacher. That teachers notice everything. That they watch who does the work versus who takes the credit. That they understand the difference between appearance and substance. That they document carefully before making final grades. She forgot that inheritance isn't about who claims love loudest. It's about who demonstrates love most consistently. About who stays when staying is difficult. About who sacrifices without expecting recognition. About who chooses presence over convenience. Mom trusted the one who stayed. The daughter who rearranged her life, gave up career momentum, spent 7 years in small moments of caregiving that nobody witnessed or celebrated. The daughter who never expected inheritance because love wasn't transactional. Vanessa lost everything by trying to take everything. I gained everything by expecting nothing. And somewhere, I hope Mom knows that her final lesson landed exactly as intended. She thought being loud made her the heir. She forgot Mom trusted the one who stayed.